Figma's been in the news a lot. Let me show you how it can change your workflow. Hello, my name is Kendall Hotchkiss. I'm an art director, illustrator, and 2D motion designer. Today, I'm teaming up with School of Motion to give you an introduction to Figma. So Figma is typically used as a UI UX program, but it's really got a whole lot of features that can be used across a wide variety of industries. For motion design, I use it a lot for a lot of creative things, and it's really been useful in my personal workflow. I think it'd be useful in yours. Figma is a web-based program. It works best with an internet connection, and at its heart, it's a collaboration tool mainly focused on UI and UX. But a lot of the tools go way beyond that world. So I'm going to start out by showing you the Figma and FigJam work interface, and then I'm going to show you some use cases of how you can use it in your workflow. There's a desktop version that you can download, but there's some limits, so I do recommend it using the majority in browser. This is similar to the program Spline 3D, where you can do all your designing and creation inside the browser. If you want to learn more about Spline 3D, you can check out the tutorial link. So when you open it up, you're going to see two different types of file types. So when you open up the team section, you'll be able to see all of your files that are part of that, who's a part of it, how many files you have if you're not using a paid version. On the other side of the opening page, you'll be able to access your themes, choose a desktop apps version if you need that. So I do want to make a couple distinctions between Figma and FigJam. Figma is more like the design program. It's where you're going to be creating everything inside that program. It's kind of like Photoshop and Illustrator, XD. All of the design assets will be in there. Where FigJam is more like a whiteboarding program. It's better for collaboration, coming up with ideas, brainstorming, mind mapping, all sorts of things. Both have very similar properties, both have similar functions, but they are kind of more distinct things. So let's open up a Figma file. You'll see on one side you have the layer panel and you have pages. So pages are kind of like folders. You can have different things in each of them. It will hold your artboards, or as they're called in this, frames. Then there's the asset panel. So the asset panel will hold your components, and I'll tell you a little bit about that later. Everything else looks pretty similar to most design interfaces. Up at the top is your toolbar. On the other side, you can share things. You can also see how many people are in your file. Similar to Google Docs, you'll have little icons of who's in your files. You can also share. So when you're sharing, you have multiple options in here. You can also publish to the Figma community. So this is the Figma community section. There's a whole bunch of variety of templates in this area, plugins, widgets, all of the types of things that you really need to get started in Figma. Some of them are a little bit silly, including this one about gingerbread houses, where you can build a gingerbread house with some people in FigJam. Some of them are games. Highly recommend checking them all out if you just need a few ideas or a starting point. So let's look at a FigJam file. In the top, you have a few features like a timer. If you have a paid version, you can put some votes and polls in here. You can also pick out any template that you need. Down below is all your tools. So you have a little marker. You can go ahead and play with different things like a highlighter. There's tape, which is fun. You can change it, make it look like a little board app. There's an eraser tool, of course. You can also put in little whiteboarding tools, and this is a nice little mind mapper that you can use to help come up with some ideas. You can use sticky notes. If you have multiple people, you can have a signature available. Otherwise, I usually turn that off if it's just me. You can change font sizes, colors, different types of fonts, all types of things. So one of the more useful things in this are all of the templates. You can open up by clicking down here, or you can go up into the top corner and click on templates through there. So some of the templates are going to be more useful than others, and some are going to be fun. If you're looking down at the bottom, you'll also see stickers. You'll see widgets that you can use. Some people put calendars in. You can go through a little to-do list. You can add in plugins like icons. You can use pictures from Unsplash or other different stock sites. You can start wireframing in here. You can pick different colors, your polls, all kinds of things. I tend to use the storyboarding app a lot, which is really great. You can get it set up put in different illustrations, write out your script. If you're drawing straight in thing here, you can use the little drawing tools, or you can copy and paste pictures from Photoshop, or if you hand draw them, you can go ahead and add those in here. All right, so let me share with you a project example for Explainer Camp. I put all of my things in a FigJam file so that I could find everything together. I have notes from a phone call that I had with them. I have the brief so that I know everything that I'm referencing. My script is in here so I can go back and forth. And then I'm going to set up my storyboard. So in the storyboard, I have all of my images set up. I drew all of these on the iPad app so that they're all set up already inside of FigJam. And I just use all the regular tools down below. You can see, drew them in. Then I used another template for the brand. And you can see that this is a much easier way to keep everything organized and all in one place. So now I'm going to go over to regular Figma and use a plugin. I'm going to pull in my brief so I know exactly everything I want. So I'm just using PDF to Viewer. I'm going to import my PDF of my brief so I can always reference it in the file, and make the size a little bit bigger so I can view it a little bit easier. Otherwise it comes in kind of small. And now I have the script and all of my branding parts that I need all in here. Then I'm going to add in a section, which is kind of a nice way to group things. The hotkey is Shift S. You basically can just grab everything in and organize it. And let me show you what I already have in here. Starting with some of the logos, I've set up a component for all of the logo colors, and I'll explain components a little bit later. I added in my colors, which you can just do off onto the side here. So those are just global colors, my typefaces that are set up already. And then these are just some mood boards that I've gathered together so that everything is in one area. I'm going to go ahead and select my favorite mood board, color it a little bit so that I know exactly which one is the one I'm using. Let's make a new page where we're going to build our style frame in. So let's add in a frame. So if you don't know what a frame is similar to artboards. It's a little bit different in that you can change some of the colors, you can round corners. It's got a few more things to it. Now I'm going to copy some frames and storyboard examples from FigJam straight into some other programs. You can pull them into Photoshop if you want to draw in there, or you can just pull them into a Figma file and just copy and paste them. So these are some examples of what I would think would be some interesting style frames to grab from and use. We're just going to design one for this example project. So let's build our little phone-looking thing referencing this one that I've already created. So I'm just going to resize things. The shapes in here are fairly similar to other design programs. This is all vector-based, so if you drag on things, it's not going to pixelate. You can just resize everything to what you want. You can add rounded corners, add pen tool shapes, all types of things. Then I'm just going to play around with building some different aspects of this phone-looking type of object. I can use the pen tool. I create lines. I can round, the edges of a line. I can use the Pathfinder tool if I need that. In this particular case, I'm not using it, but that does exist within this. I'm ready to add in auto layout so I can build this a little bit quicker. If you don't know what auto layout is, it is a way to create designs which respond to changing the content and layout sizes. So this helps with speeding up the workflow when working with a ton of content. So I'm going to start out with grouping the section that I want to auto layout. You can think of this as a fancy align tool, but it has a few more options. So I'm going to grab the two that I want to auto layout with. I'm going to right click and I'm going to click on frame section. So you want to make these into a frame because otherwise you won't have the option to add auto layout. And then when you're ready, we're going to click on the little plus button over here that says auto layout. And that will automatically align them to what you want. So you have a little grid, so you can show where you want to align to. You can say which direction you want to go, if you want to go horizontal or if you want it to be vertical. This is really great for if you have a lot of text or different things, cards. And this, we're going to keep it pretty simple and just work with shapes. So I'm going to auto align multiple things. So now I will make a point that you don't want to use rectangles very often because then you won't have access to the auto layout. So let's go ahead and let's auto layout the whole entire phone so that everything works together in this grid. I'm just doing the same right-clicking and framing and creating its bounding box. You notice that everything's squished together, so I'm going to add in some padding, and then I'm going to add in a little bit on those extra little frames within the section that have auto layout already applied to them. You can add multiple auto layouts on multiple frames. You can have frames within frames, so this becomes a pretty powerful tool. If you want to frame things in auto layout, but you want the object to not be directly in the middle or a little bit off to the side and hang outside of the frame, you can click on this little button, which will make it absolute position, and that will allow you to pull it outside of the frame. So you can use these generally for buttons that might be floating off the side or a notification, for example. So auto layout is really great for creating responsive designs and creating a ton of things in a group that are already set up. So now that auto layout is done, let's just go ahead and just do some fast coloring using the global layout styles that I've already created. So let's go ahead and let's pull this into a style frame. I'm going to create my little artboard or frame in this case, copy and paste the phone into it, and let's add some color using the global style layouts I've already set up. Now you do want to use the global ones. That way if I change maybe my teal, I can affect all of the ones that are set to that global style instead of it just being just individually. Because if you use just the regular color picking tool, you wouldn't be able to change it. So I'm going here, I'm changing these into strokes. I have a specific size I want set up. I'm going to just apply those all into here. So I think what I want to do is I want to add in a logo. You'll notice that because I did not make this rectangle shape a frame earlier, I can't actually insert that logo in. It will keep popping into the shape elsewhere instead of where I wanted to go. So it's aligning where I wanted to align, but it's not inside the frame. So that is the problem with making a rectangle instead of a frame. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change that setup. I'm going to frame this logo instead. I'm going to take the measurements from that regular rectangle that I'd already set up earlier, and I'm just going to pop those into this frame with the logo, color the background so that it's the same color that I liked. And it's aligned where I want to go once I add auto layout so that it sets up in the center. Now I will have to add some padding here so that everything's good. I am making these a fixed size so that if I added more into it, it wouldn't expand. It would just stay where I want it to be. So that makes this a lot easier to set up instead of having to constantly pin my logo through the line tool and make sure everything's always in the middle. This is looking a little bit bland. So I'm going to add in a quick texture. Let's use a plugin again. Let's go up and use Unsplash. So if you don't know what Unsplash is, it's a free stock photo website. You can go to the website itself and you can download any photo from there that's free and upload that into Figma. Or you can just use this plugin, which already sources all of those same stock photos. So I'm just going to pick out the texture I want here. And I like this one, so let's add that in. So this did stick it straight into the auto layout, so I'm just going to pull it out again and then kind of lock some things down and rearrange it so that it shows up where I wanted to show up. I'm going to pull up one more plugin. So I'm going to run Photopea. So this is essentially a Photoshop dupe, but it's all in browser. You'll notice it looks exactly the same. I have options to add adjustment layers. So I'm just going to turn this black and white, add some curves, up the contrast using levels, And I'm just gonna go ahead and make this a little bit easier to read as a paper texture. I can just go ahead and just save it in this little section and it will automatically populate into the artboard or the frame. So let's play around with some blend modes and make it a little bit more of a dynamic looking design here. Now we have a texture, and we've done this all in browser, so you don't have to even go into Photoshop for this. I mean, you could if you want to, but this is an option where you don't have to. So I'm going to go ahead and add in a component. So I'm going to go up to the asset panel and I'm going to drag in a local component, this little sailboat. Let's put that in. You'll notice when I click on it, there's all these little options on this little drop down over here on the side that you can just go ahead and pick a different color for this little sailboat. This is a component. Let me explain a little bit about how that works and how to create one. A component is an element of your design that you want to reuse. It helps with keeping designs consistent across multiple screens and projects. You can think of this as similar to Mogurts in Adobe After Effects. So you basically can add in and create a template, and you can create instances which are different variations of your thing. So let's go back and let me show you how to make this component. So we're going to start out with using the Pathfinder tool or the Shape Builder tool. It works a lot like Illustrator's Pathfinder. The notable exception is that things don't quite union and merge the same way automatically. The default is that everything is separated, and then you have to go back and flatten these later on. And that will be important for when we bring it into After Effects. But you can just use all of the Shape Builder tools in here and create different things. I'm going to make another boat for this example. So let's create this little sail using the triangle tool, lining those up so that everything looks great. It's all ready. Let's pick a color and let's create a component. So components are really great because you can use them over and over again and change little things, and they're great for a giant project. I'm going to click on the little component button, which is up at the top here. You notice it's got little diamond shapes. You can use the hotkey if you want to. And then I'm going to add in a variant, which is also at the top. You'll notice the menu has changed up there. So when I click on this little button, it's going to allow me to create a variant. So the variants for this are going to be colors so that I can just quick swap those when I would need to. So I'm going to name this little color variant. I'm going to name the specific color that I want to change it to, and then I'm going to change the color itself. And then I'm going to add in another variant is what I'm going to do. And I'm just going to keep repeating the same process for all of the colors that I want to add. And you'll notice it will ask me to rename all of those every single time. So what's nice about this is you can add in a multitude of variants. It can be for something more complex like type. You can add in icons, change out your buttons. Maybe you want certain things to only be on other ones. For this, we're going to keep it simple. We're going to stick with just the color variations. But you'll notice when I go back into the style frame, the local component's already set up in this little asset thing. I'm going to drag that in. And then when I click on it, all of my variants will be off to the side that I can click and pick. But variants can be applied to other things. So maybe you want your sail to be the opposite side. Now I can go and do that. I can also change the variant, have that set up already in another file, and that will change it in all of the other instances that exist that use that same variant. Let me show you one more example where maybe I want the corners to change. I want these all rounded now. I don't want them to all be square. So I'm going to add in a rounded corner to this. And now everything that is an instance of this component now has rounded corners. So that is an example, whereas an instance would be I have changed the text on this and now the header is different than the other one, but I can still go back to the main component and affect that instance. So you can bring an instance and it will be perhaps different if you want, but it won't be affected by that global style anymore. Variants are different than an instance. A variant is another option of the component that can be affected and changed. So if I change something in the variant, all variants will be affected by that. Versus if I create an instance, it's just that one single item. So let's go ahead and let's drag this component into the auto layout. I have decided I want it to be inside of this little extra frame that already has an auto layout down here. I'm going to frame the selection so I can add in an auto layout and a border. So let's add the border in first. Let me change the size of the stroke around some corners. Let's change like how I want this to populate. And I think I'm going to have this be a fixed size instead of it being hugging the object. And then I'm going to add in that auto layout again so it sets up directly in the center. Now you'll notice it changed my fixed settings, so I have to go back and edit that. But it's still in the middle. And the stroke size is not correct, so let's change that. Actually, no, it's centered. And then I'm going to just move where I want it to be in the frame. So I'm going to go adjust that. I wanted to hug the object. Let's move the sailboat to the middle by just dragging, or you can hit the arrow keys right and left, and it will be there in the middle. And then I'm going to change the sailboat because I want it to be a different color. And that's the component that we use, so I don't have to go and change all of those. So let's center this, and I think we're done with our style frame. So before we go ahead and export this out, we're going to use one more plugin called Destroyer. And this pretty much just breaks everything down so that it's all shapes, everything. We want to make sure we're breaking it down. Our type is all like outline, for example. In this case, it's called flatten. But you want to break everything apart because otherwise things won't come out in After Effects. Definitely make sure you flatten all the things you want to do. If you want editable text, you might just have to remake that in After Effects. Once you're all done with bringing everything over there, you're going to open it up in the desktop version of Figma. Because if you don't do that, this next plugin by BattleAxe won't work. You can find AEUX. You can just go to battleaxe.co, scroll down, and click on there, and you will be able to download it there. So first off, you want to open up After Effects. You want to create a comp. Otherwise, you won't have any place for Figma to move everything over to. So once you have that set up, we're going to go ahead and create a path, open that up, and then go back into desktop version of Figma. We're going to start by selecting a frame that you want to copy over, and you can just go ahead and send that straight over. So the default for when you send things out is it will come in as shape layers. Two other options in here. You can export the reference images, and that will just be kind of one big giant guide in After Effects, or you can rasterize the layer on export, and that will bring everything in as PNGs and JPEGs. Or you can have them all come in shape layers, which is the default. So when it comes in, most things are going to come in as shape layers within comps. So each frame will kind of be treated as a comp. You can explode that if you need to. You'll have to make a few adjustments. Some things will come in smaller, and you'll just have to like place them in where you need them to go. The background doesn't come in as the colors you wanted to, so you might want to add a solid in there. You'll have to make your own adjustments, but this will get you over there so you can get started on animating. Let me show you this quick example of when you don't merge and flatten your Pathfinder tool all the way. You'll notice that everything has come in separate, and you have to change all of the little properties. And what you want to do is you want to go back into Figma and just make sure everything is completely flattened. Going up to the Pathfinder tool and clicking that little merge shapes. And if you click on it, you'll notice it is one outline or one pen tool shape. It's not multiple shapes together that are you can pull apart and move. So just make sure you're double checking on that. If you're having errors with it coming into After Effects and it looking a little bit wonky, go back and merge those shapes together. Oh, great. So everything looks set up for animating. If you like this intro to Figma, we would appreciate a thumbs up. Also, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell to get notified when we post new tutorials and keep up to date with the latest Adobe and Figma news. Head to schoolofmotion.com to learn more about interactive online curriculum and let our team know if you have any questions. I hope you appreciate this little intro to Figma, and I look forward to hopefully seeing you in the future.